Ladies and gentlemen, when you first begin your chess career, you are going to be making a lot of mistakes. And when you're going to research the most common types of mistakes that beginners and intermediate level players make, you're gonna hear things like, you hang your queen too much, you don't develop your pieces, you don't focus on the center. Well, in this video, I'm going to go above and beyond that by far. I'm gonna give you what, in my opinion, are the 7 most important mistakes that you are making that are preventing you from gaining elo consistently. And since this is going to be a really fun video, it deserves a better shirt than this. So, much better. Okay, so timestamps are going to be on the video player. Let's get into it. The first mistake that you are making is that you are trading everything. And if you're not guilty of this, well, most people at this level are. So, let's talk a little bit about what I'm talking about. Wow, fantastic English. So, e4, e5. You've definitely had games like this. Knight f3, knight c6, you play a little bit of this. All right, one pawn has been traded. Now black decides to trade a knight. And then black decides to trade a queen, and you're like, yeah, well, whatever, you know, let's do it. And then you go here, and then they go here, and now they're gonna trade this, right? Oh my goodness, oh no. And you know, by the end of like the first 12 moves, half the armies are gone. Just gone. Like, without even thinking about what the heck is happening. So, here's the thing. Trading pieces in chess has multiple elements to it, the first element of which is which pieces are supposed to be traded depending on the opening that you are playing. So the opening that we just saw was the Scotch. This is the Scotch opening with knight takes d4. With white playing knight takes d4. This is a really bad move for black. Normally in the Scotch, black plays knight to f6 or bishop to c5. There's like really nothing else. There's a couple of other tricky lines, but those are the 2 main lines. Because the point of the opening is not to just trade all the pieces. The point of the opening is to develop all your pieces in a coordinated way, and that sometimes means keeping tension, because both of them are protected. Neither side wants to make the exchange, because then they just remove one of their attackers from the game. This would be okay for black, but normally black wants to put a knight to attack a queen in the center. They can't do that anymore. And if black plays c5, that's actually a really big weakness, and we'll talk a little bit about the other common mistakes. White is already about plus 1.5 here after simply retreating, because black has just made this really big weakness in the center of the board. The knight will plant there, white will develop the bishops, either castle short or long, and this is just a much better position for white. But the second that white then trades queens, now black is like doing very well, because black is basically playing white now. You've traded queens in a way that you just gave them a lead in development. Now black has a knight out, you have nothing. You bring a knight out, now I'm pinning you. Now there's even more stuff here, like bishop takes this, I'm not so sure about this. This is not a very good trade. And in general, I would say this bishop for knight thing, like for example, you know, just bringing the bishop out and then taking over here, unless you are damaging the structure or opening the king, don't do it. Don't trade the bishop for the knight unless you are damaging the structure and you have a logical follow-up, or you are weakening the king. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. In this case, there kind of is a point. You do win a pawn, so it does make sense, but white just wins another pawn. And of course, this is just a terrible move. There's no need to give away the bishop for the knight. It is obviously better for white to play a move like bishop to d4, to maintain 2 bishops, and then kick the knight out, and then castle, and then make sure that, you know, you don't lose this pawn. Don't just move this bishop out and lose this pawn. And white is about +1 here, according to the engine. Just very clear advantage. Why? Bishop pair, better pawn structure. So 3-3 per side. So trades stem from openings. And they are founded in logic. They are rooted in logical exchanges. For example, another opening, the London, right? This is the notorious London. Well, in the London system, this trade of bishops is something that black actually really wants. If you trade like this, even pawn takes is completely okay for black, because now your general plan of putting your knight here is not possible anymore. Yes, black damages the structure, but the pawns are all together. So, you know, maybe black can use that double pawn to push in the center. So what you do here is you try to trade on your own terms. You slide back. That's actually one of the reasons you do this, because if they take you, they just open up your rook, and this knight to e5 is still very much a plan. You take toward the center, your pawns are together, and your rook is open. And in a perfect world, if black is not careful, you will just launch a very devastating attack on their king, and you won't castle. So you try to make exchanges on your own terms stemming from openings. But, and if you want to go a little bit more in depth on when to trade and why to trade and how to trade, you got to watch a video on that. I have a video on that, and so do other people. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on when to trade pieces. That's stuff that you got to look up, and you got to understand it coming from your own openings. Here's a great example. White's got a really nice position here. If it was white to move, white would play queen to d3, line up a battery over here, and try to get rid of this knight, either with a pawn or with the knight. This knight is very powerful. So one of the best moves here for black is to try to trade this relatively passive bishop. This bishop is never going to break through this, ever. So bishop here to maybe even take. And there might be a situation where bishop takes knight right away is the best way to go. You trade off your bad bishop, and then you move the knight out of the way. This is protected by virtue of just pawn to g6. Nice little barricade there. And again, bishop is covered by a ton of light squared pawns as a little barrier, and this knight can rotate out to the other side of the board. At the same time, if black wants to trade knights, like knight for knight, yeah, that would be a fantastic trade for black because you've removed such an active piece, and all you got to do is just not get mated, which we will talk about later. So there's an art to trading pieces the right way. You have to have a concrete reason to do so, okay? Don't just be swapping pieces left and right. Trust me. And it's going to be better for your long-term improvement. Don't put abstract concepts behind trades either. Oh, I always trade my queen because I'm afraid of getting mated or I'm afraid of losing my queen. What? If a world champion has never said that, you shouldn't say that either. All right, let's move to mistake number 2. This is something that I've decided to call fake training. All of us are guilty of this. We're actually not even going to use the board a whole lot, but I will begin with this. Fake training is the art of convincing yourself you are doing productive, legitimate things to improve at something. Not just chess related, by the way. Mastering this ability beyond chess is probably what we all need. Fake training is something like this. You like my videos. You see a sale. You buy the E4 course. You study the Vienna for a little bit. Knight c3, you get really excited. You win a couple blitz games. You're like, ooh! And then you don't study the rest of the course. How many of you have courses that you just don't study because you're like, I don't have time or this or that? You have to actually study. That, like, you have to set aside time and use the resources, whether they're free or paid for, and actually put in the work. If you study the Vienna, you need to be left alone and be able to explain everything to me. Right now, I can explain everything to you. If knight to f6, you have the option of the classical Vienna, or you can play the Vienna Gambit, and now I would be able to tell you all the main lines. The best move and only move is d5. And within the main line, there is obviously knight c3, there is f5, and knight c6. Those are all the main moves. You have to be able to recite that. You have to be able to get to the board and not just not know stuff. Because otherwise, you're fake training. That's the courses element. The same goes for, if you get a g6 course with black. Or the Caro Kann course. You're like, well, I know what to do if they play the exchange. I don't really remember what to do here. What do you mean you don't remember? You have it. It's in your possession. So go learn it. You're like, oh, I always lose when they play this. Well, are you even playing it correctly? Are you playing the right response? So that's the opening state, right? But we also fake train in general. Because you might say, well, I'm playing blitz every day. And what? You play 20 blitz games a day because you have time. You go at like 50%, sometimes 45% win, sometimes 55% win. Are you actually learning anything? Well, no, not really. And the other thing that we do a lot is we will study tactics. That's the other thing that we do. Let's just pause the board here for a moment. Let's talk, you and me. We will do tactics. Puzzles have a way of getting us really hyped because a lot of people have massive puzzle ratings. But if I slap you on the neck and tell you, hey, pay attention, you're winning in this position, well, probably you're going to find it, right? But you can't, there's no such thing in a game, live game, with the anxiety, the blood, the blood pumping, the heart rate going up. You have to actually be able to locate these things in game time. So you have to put it all together. That's what I mean by fake training. This is not going to be like a massive, chess analysis section. I wanted to show you the openings there. But the other thing is when you're solving those puzzles, what you need to do is actually understand. You need to put the concepts you're seeing into words. Like, conceptualize it. Mark it down in your brain so that your brain will pick up on it later. Top chess players. I'm not a top chess player, but even title players like myself, in a live game, we're not sitting there going, what is my mental, what did I internalize about this concept? No, You program your brain almost like an AI, and it just picks it up. It just sees it, pattern recognized, boom, and your brain just will latch onto a move. But stop fake training. Stop convincing yourself you're actually putting in the work, whether it's free or paid content, tactics, endgames, openings. If you can't recite it to someone, then you don't know it. All right, let's go to mistake number 3. Okay, this one is on an elementary level, pretty basic, but I'm adding more to it. And I want to call this the one mover. Yes, a one mover is you just move your queen and you lose it. Bye. All right, good night. But there is more to it than this. I want you to think about this in 3 different ways. Number 1, you play a move which creates a very simplistic threat and moves your piece out of position. Then you do not even think where the opponent's piece is gonna go. That drives me nuts. Oh my goodness. For example, take this position. Black is slightly better here, strategically, because white has pawns that are, blocking in the bishop, potential weakness in the center of the board. But if this is a game between two 1000s, it doesn't matter. But here, white plays this move, knight to e5, because it's a nice move. The knight moves to the middle and attacks the queen. Must be a good move. But there is not even a thought behind those eyeballs about where the queen is gonna go. You don't even think about that. Like, well, it's gonna move. What do you think? They're just gonna leave it there? That's how people think. They're like, well, if they don't move it, I'll take it. What? Maximum danger to yourself. So the queen could go to d6, the queen could go to c7, e8, b7, a8, and a lot of us will just go, I don't know, they'll move it somewhere, then we'll figure it out. No, the best players in the world know the best move for both sides, not just for themselves. Where's the queen gonna go? It's gonna go to c5, of course. And then you get hit with queen c5 and you go, oh my God, I'm so dumb. How did I not see that? You weren't even looking for it in the first place. You discard a move like knight e5 as you get better because you start asking yourself, can they attack me in any way? Oh, yeah, they can. All right? Yes, actually. Now, in a 30-minute game, I need like someone rated 800, 900 to already see knight e5, queen c5. In a 3-minute game, even a 1200 could blunder knight e5, queen c5 because the board is big and it's a 3-minute game. All right, it happens. So the time control does matter. But these one movers, just these empty one move threats, you guys gotta stop doing them. And I have more examples, of course. Here's an example. This is slightly different, but this isn't just like a one move loss. This is very like a custom position from a game that was sent to me by a subscriber. Here I believe it's black to move, and black is equal on material, slightly worse because this bishop is better than this knight, but plays this move g5. Now on a surface, not a bad move. Attacks the queen, right? Can't be that bad, and it's defended. The problem is it drastically weakens the king. The queen slides forward, and now it's excruciatingly difficult to get rid of these two pieces. Because what are you gonna do? If you offer a queen trade, I take on g5. So black was like, well, I want to offer a queen trade, so I gotta guard this first. So 2 pawn moves that weaken the king, obviously all started by just a random pawn attack on the queen. And now white played this, which almost looks like a blunder, because there's knight f3 check, and you win the rook. But because you allowed the queen in, there is this move. You cannot take because you're pinned. Now I take with check, and I just play f5. And you lose. You just lose. You cannot prevent f6 and mate. You gotta sack your queen. It's impossible. f6, I take your king. GG. So that's it. The game's over. There's nothing black can do at all. There's no way to get to this king. If this check was possible, that would be great, but it's not. This is game over. That's it. The game is completely lost. So one move caused all the problems. There was no way in for white at all. I mean, if you ventured off here, like, I don't know, let's just say like queen h6, okay, and then there would be knight f3, and I could trade queens with you, which I would love. But because you just play one very aggressive move, that's it. Your one mover is gone. You've completely damaged your structure and your position. You have a terrible position on the board now. So this happens all the time. Here's another example. And this is something I like to call continuity. This is, as I started introducing a concept called continuity, it's similar on the one mover kind of thing, but it's remembering how a position is all tied together as a move is made. So white just played queen to b3. The queen was here, it just got attacked. It goes here and attacks b7. You're like, I'm getting that pawn if they don't see it. They play over here. You're like, well, I don't know what that does. I mean, I guess I could take, but I don't want to lose the bishop pair. Because, you know, you've heard the bishop pair. So you're like, all right, I'm just going to take on b7. And you just blunder a one mover for your opponent. They just take, boom, one move. You're like, oh my God, how did I not see that? You tunnel visioned, asterisk, very important term. You tunnel vision. You were like, well, I'm going to take b7. You just completely forgot. What you should have done is probably take, and then take on b7. And by the way, even that's not the best move. Apparently the engine here really likes this move f5, locking the bishop out and actually just threatening to win it, which is very difficult to see, especially if you're not like 16, 1700. That's a very tough move. It looks like it does nothing, but this bishop is completely locked away. And, you know, that's how you introduce more advanced concepts. When you take on b7, there might be rook b8, and then now they're going to win this pawn, and that's the nature of a one mover. You tunnel vision on your plan. You completely don't realize what your opponent is trying to accomplish. And, well, you pay the price. And last but not least, continuity. Oh, my favorite. You have this position. White is definitely a little bit better here, I would say. Maybe even a lot better, because these pawns are so weak. Now, if I set this position up for you, and perhaps you're looking at this and you go, well, I can give a mate there if I have some protection. Protection is good. Very important. You play bishop e4, and they take your rook, and now you're down a rook. And then they got to get back and defend this, and it's very doable. I mean, they can even do it like this. And that's actually why you have to look at maximum danger for your opponent, because now they attack and they defend, and that's very bad for you. That knight just does the trick. That's something called continuity. Just realizing what is affected on a chessboard, okay? And if you go here, you stop guarding your rook. And max danger, boom, you hang a rook. Congratulations. And by the way, this can happen in like multiple ways. If I just edit this board a tiny bit, like I'll do something like this. And I'll move this king over to g7. Let's say in this position, you're like, well, I can push my pawn and attack the knight. That looks nice. I'm going to do that. Oops, 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 oops. Continuity. The board changes every move you make. So be focused on your opponent's pieces. Draw little arrows with your eyeballs from your opponent's pieces to your pieces, to empty squares. That is going to get you on the right track and have you stop making these erroneous one-move decisions that weaken your position, that have no long-term benefit, and stop just making random knight jumps, piece jumps to just attack things and not think about where they're going to move. Let's go to mistake number 4. So this one is a little bit more general, but it's you making the same kind of mistake over and over. There are many kind of ways to do this. Number 1 could be your openings. You're just spamming the same openings without reviewing the lines, reviewing the concepts, and you're not getting yourself an optimal situation. And what I mean by that is, Lucy, for example, love her dearly, my wonderful girlfriend. She plays e4. And she doesn't do a whole lot of work on her Vienna, but she has gotten so many positions like this. She's about 900 blitz, about 1,000 blitz, 1,100 rapid, and she's just completely winning in the opening. She's just this is known to be completely winning for white. But she will not convert the advantage, or sometimes she will not even consistently take this. She'll play a move like knight to f3 in this position, which is not the right move. The same can be said, like, for example, if they take. You know, she's played e5 before, and there's queen h4 on the cards, so you have to play knight f3, which she does pretty consistently now. But for a while, she would be playing d4 and simply allowing queen to h4. So you need to build consistency through your openings. You cannot just be playing incorrect openings, even getting totally winning positions. You have to build upon previous games. For example, in the Scandinavian defense, if we flip this, right? We're just going to flip this real quick for black. I've seen this happen maybe 5 or 6 times in Lucy's games when she plays the Scandinavian. You know, she's doing her Scandinavian, throws her queen over there, plays pawn to c6 so the queen can come to safety, develops, you know, white attacks the bishop, so she trades. And then in this position, they play bishop to g5. The most advanced players will obviously see this. And I've actually used this same example in another video. And it will just not happen. And I was always thinking to use this as an example in a video because I guarantee your opponents are making repetitive mistakes in openings that you are playing within the first 10 moves, and you are not punishing them for it. That's what I mean by the same mistake. It happens in the openings. Now, Another very common same mistake, and I hear this all the time, I'm gonna flip this to White's perspective real quick, is hanging the queen. It's kind of a meme, but how many times do we just hang the queen in the middle of a game? It's ridiculous. You have to stop doing it. And it's honestly not the most difficult thing in the world. One day you're just playing a Sicilian defense, just improvising. You don't know your openings too well. You know you're kind of supposed to fight for the center. Okay, you trade. I don't love that trade. There's doubled pawns, but it's not the best thing in the world. Now you immediately undouble the pawns. How does that make any sense? Okay. Now you're like, well, I can develop knight, bishop, or rook, but it's time to move my queen out. All right, d5. Now you just trade. You don't even hesitate. I don't really love that move. I don't know why you would do that, but okay. Pretty equal. Move your rook out, bishop. And then here, the devil on your shoulder is like, hey, what if I somehow get to g7? Like, you know, boom, boom. Or like, boom, boom, mate. Okay, Queen, knight d2. Oh, the queen comes out. Okay. So you could just take on f6, right? And that's this. And you just the pawn up, king's wide open, great position. But in your mind, you were like, well, I can take, and this won't have any sort of defense, right? Because I'll go queen g3, then I'll take, they can't take back. Oh, I'm so smart. Boom. And then this happens, and you want to just throw every possession you have out the window. Every single one. Straight out the window onto the street. You want to break your phone. You're like, how did I do that again? Because it's something that I already mentioned in this video. Draw little arrows from your opponent's pieces onto yours, like this. It's not that complicated. Like this bishop has no vision this way. So you're looking over here. The queen, look, patrol, done. And at some point, you got to stop making the same mistake over and over again. Whether it's in the opening, whether it's poor time management, which we will talk about later, whether it's one move blunders. You all do this. Everyone's guilty of it. There is a culprit behind the madness. There is not, you're not making 400 different types of mistakes. It's probably pretty consistently what you're doing. Maybe you're getting overwhelmed by players who play extremely fast. You get frustrated when you play people who trade all the pieces. You're not playing your openings correctly, but it's the same thing over and over again. Let's go to mistake number 5. I just said I was going to tell you about time management. When you think time management in chess, you think play too slow, lose on time, or whatever. And everybody has a different philosophy when it comes to time management. Some people say, I'm going to play a 10-minute game, and if I get a winning position, but I lose on time, I'm going to be happy because I got a winning position. Why are you happy? That's what I never understood. Like, on the one hand, sure, you probably played a little bit better than your opponent by accuracy, but they beat you on the clock. Chess, oftentimes, is a game of efficiency, as much as it is a game of playing the best move at the best moment. The truth is, if you're a 1,000 rated player trying to improve, you gotta throw out the idea that you're gonna play a perfect game. Stop. No, you're not, and that's okay. You need to play better than your opponent. That's it. You gotta make a little bit less mistakes, and you gotta punish mistakes when they become available, which is why you're watching this video in the first place. And thank you, by the way. What are you, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the video now? I don't know, because I have to edit it together. I take breaks in the middle. I don't know. Anyway, let's say you're playing with white, and you play like a 3-minute game, you play e4, and you're like, all right, I know I take the center. All right, that's kind of a weird move. Let me think for a little bit. Opponent's playing every move in 1 second, by the way. Like borderline pre-moving. Bishop 2, e3, boom, boom. You're like, all right, I'm going to take more space with my pawns. I'm going to finish my development. I don't know what they're doing. And now you start thinking. Now you got like 2:20 on the clock. They got like 2:55. Okay? And you think for a while because you don't know what to do. You have an overload of options. Literally any move in this position with white, short of like a complete giveaway of a piece, is good. Anything you do, doesn't matter what rook you move. Why? You got much more space. This is a very non-standard development. It doesn't really make any sense. This knight has no fight in the center at all. You can already begin to trample black. You can begin fighting for this. You spend like 20 seconds here because you just don't know what to do. You're nervous. You're like, oh my God. Couple of more moves go by. You know, black actually spots that this has to be defended. You keep thinking, you know, they just keep playing solidly. And before you know it, they have 2:40. You have like a minute on the clock. And you end up losing the game because you panic. They probably play something stupid. Maybe you like slide your queen over later on and then you hang it. You're like, oh my God. This is what I'm going to say. Depending on the time format that you play, let's say you play 3-minute, set time goals. All right? If you're playing a longer game, you have a lot of time to mess around. So for time management, what I would say is, if you're playing shorter time control, you got to move. Just move. And make a little note, I'm not going to trail my opponent on the clock by more than 20 seconds. It does not matter. I will play solid, simple moves. When I don't know what to do in a position like this, I will play a3. I will slide a piece over a couple of squares. I won't change the position so much. And that's how you got to do it, because at some point they're going to slow down. That's just the truth. Or they're going to do something really stupid, which is when you need to be on high alert. That's where the tactics training comes in. That's not the fake training that we talked about. Diligent tactics training, spotting the patterns immediately. That's tough, but it's part of the game. And the truth is, playing with these little time barriers in mind is extremely important. I don't do a whole lot of it when I stream, because I'm talking to the chat. I'm frequently much lower on time. And I'm trying to get better at it in classical chess, but sometimes it's really difficult. That's just the truth. But there's a reverse to this, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you can play too fast. And I don't know why you would play a 30-minute game and 25 moves into it be only down to 28 minutes. What are you doing? I have seen people send me games where on move 25, they have 28-30 on the clock. They're down like a piece. I'm like, yo, why would you play a 30-minute game and play that fast? What is the point of that? So you need to find a comfortable time interval that you enjoy playing, 10-minute, 3-minute, whatever, and you need to play efficiently. Don't let that gap of time get super far. Hold yourself accountable. You might lose rating in the short term, but in the long run, you're going to get sharper, and you're not just going to tank all your time and still play a bad move. I'm going to give you an example of this. One of my subscribers, Trees Eric, had a game recently where around move 25, if we just take a look at this position, he's up. He's up big, actually. In fact, a little bit later, they traded some pieces. He's up 2 points of material here, but it's a lot more than that. The rooks are flying in on both sides to crash on h2. This barrier prevents white from getting any counterplay. The knight is about to be lost. And after knight c5, take, I know you can't see the time because this is analysis, but in this position, black has about 150 on the clock. White has about 2 minutes more. So like 340, 150. Minute and 50 seconds for black. Now, the way you win this is you actually don't even focus down this way. You rotate the queen over. This is devastating because you can't prevent this anymore. If the rook comes in like desperately trying to defend everything, now you can sneak into the back rank and the king has nowhere to run. The king officially has no squares, so black is completely winning and white will need to lose the queen and everything. But in the game, Eric spent some time and traded rooks and allowed this little defensive formation, and then here, with the load time, decided to bail out into an endgame. Trading queens. Totally winning. Love the strategy. Great strategy, but only has about 75 seconds on the clock remaining because he couldn't find a way through. Not a bad strategy. I actually kind of like it. Here's the problem. When you're on high alert with low time, look where the counterplay is going to be. This bishop can win any of these pawns if you allow it, because they're all light squared pawns. And which of white's pawns are the most dangerous? Not this one. This one and this one. This one's very close. This one's pretty close to promotion. Maybe the A pawn. So your king needs to hang out over here, and your rook needs to find the fastest possible way to eat everything. King d7 is not a bad move. I don't like that. Let the king hang back. Let the rook do the damage. But because you have no time, you're flying, right? You're just trying to play moves. Like, why is the king running out? Let the rook do the damage. The rook is the most powerful piece on the board right now. And look what happens. He allows this. Then, which pawn should he take? The pawn that's going to become a queen or the pawn that's not going to become a queen? He takes the wrong pawn. He's still winning. Then he plays rook h3. That's like a check, like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. I don't have a lot of time. Gives another check and takes the wrong pawn again. And now he's got a big problem. And he's got only one way to stop this, and it's with his rook. He has to stop it with the rook somehow, like rook h1, rook c1, and instead he just instinctively moves the king because he's been moving it all endgame. And now he's losing. And now he's completely lost, and now he's down a queen. And then, well, that's even an awful move. I mean, just queen b8 picks this up, but both players are kind of low on time. And then, boom, that's it. Bishop b7 is mate in one. And you get so mad when you throw games like this, but you have to manage your time better, okay? Either too fast or too slow. Figure it out. Mistake number 6 coming up. This one is also not groundbreaking, but it's a concept I like to call selfish brain. We just completely don't pay attention to our opponents sometimes in chess games, and like what they want and what they're doing. You'll notice that throughout this video, I've actually kind of drawn attention to that. in the form of one movers, like when you try to play a move and don't pay attention to what your opponent wants. But this one is a little bit more like your opponent just made a move and you don't even stop and ask yourself what they want. Like, they want to mate you. In fact, if you're a strong player, this is just hypothetically in your mind anyway. The other thing you're thinking about is, will my opponent trade pieces and try to advance this pawn? Will my opponent try to play down the middle? Will they try to sneak around and get these pawns? It's a constant thought process of what do they want. They go here, you play, oh my God, I've been training my whole life for knight forks. Kabam, I'm so smart. And then you hear, doo-doo. The chess.com little window pops up and says, oh, close game, you almost had it. And you're like, but that's completely your own fault. Who are you even mad at? Smack yourself, maybe. Come on, it's right there. Just prevent it. Prevent mate. Push the pawn. I don't know. Push this pawn. Push this pawn. Trade queens. I don't know. All of it stops mate. Or here's another example, f4. Even though that doesn't really make much sense because obviously there's even rook takes. But like, that's a very elementary, that would be very nice. That was a very elementary example, but you get what I'm saying. This happens in all your games. You want another example? Here's like a full game example, okay? If you're playing with the black pieces, you have like a London opening. You kind of vaguely know that against the London, you're supposed to attack with D and C. You saw some videos. You don't know a whole lot about it. You try to trade the bishops. And now white just does this thing where they plant the knight on e5, and then they start an attack on the king. This is a very common London idea, right? And at this point, you're like, well, I see they want to attack me, so, let's play f4, actually. Let's protect our knight. You're like, you know what? They want to attack me, so I'm going to attack them too. I'm going to attack them on that side of the board. I'm going to go bing, bang, bing, take everything, bam, bam, bam. But you're not actually counting whose attack is faster. You're just absent-mindedly chump, 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 chump on that side. Now white plays bishop to h4. You're like, well, if they take me, that's so dumb. Because then this, and then I attack the knight. That's so dumb. I'm just going to keep attacking. And now you lose the game. Because after bishop f6, pawn f6, yes, you're attacking this, but you stopped your thought at, I'm attacking that. When in reality, something like check, king h8, like, no one can guard this. So even queen to h4, there is no taking your knight because there's a mate threat. You now have to go here. And now white can play like check, for example, king g8, and has this very nice winning idea to even just very calmly take on c6. And if you take back, to just castle. And nobody can stop this. You've opened up your king. And meanwhile, you're like, well, I'm so close. Yeah. Oh, so well, that would also be nice. But no, you're not. No, your attack just got there in time to get mated. Congratulations. You did a great job. Wonderful. Awesome. So selfish brain exists in one move situations, but also like big picture on the board. You just don't pay attention to what the opponent wants, where they want to advance their pawns, how they want to coordinate their pieces. The truth is the 2800s, they know where both players are thinking to move constantly. Their differences at that highest level result not in these checkmating attacks, but in evaluation. They both see A, B, C, and they say, okay, I think B is best for that guy, and he's going to go for it. The guy looking at it goes, I actually think B is not great, I'm going to go for C. That's where they have the silent disagreements. And the margin of error is very small, and it builds up over time, the very slight inaccuracies. Whereas when you're an intermediate watching a GothamChess video, it could be fatal. You could be like, well, they're not going to take me, that's so dumb, right? But then you might also be like, well, they want to take me, that's very scary, I'm going to move my knight out of the way. And then you might still get blasted, but at least you're like, well, I see they want to go here, so I'm gonna get this out of here, and maybe I'm gonna trade this knight because it's so strong, and maybe they're gonna go here, and then that's how you even start setting traps. Like, you understand, like, you're gonna think, oh, they're gonna do something like this, and then all of a sudden you just poke holes in their defenses, and now your attack is much faster. You set a trap for them, because they can't actually break through. So you start predicting what they're gonna do, setting the defensive trap, and overwhelming them. That's how you actually get a lot better at the game. Let's go on to the final mistake you all make. For this last one, I'm actually gonna go full screen. No chessboard required. The 7th and final mistake that all of you make is a combination of two things. Number 1, tilting. Number 2, elo anxiety. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that anxiety is a mistake. Everybody suffers with some sort of inhibition, with some sort of doubt, self-doubt, confidence, ego, right? We all deal with something. We're all humans, including myself. I have a degree of anxiety when it comes to classical chess. Obviously, I haven't played in a long time, and sometimes also with tilt. But some of us handle the art of loss or victory in a very bad way. You should not just get angry and play off like 10 games and tilt 300 points. And I know you are guilty of that. Some of you for sure. All of a sudden, all your progress of getting up to 950 is your rating is down to 680. It hasn't been down there in 4 or 5 months. You never want to play chess again. It happens. Understand it happens. You want to delete the app. You want to delete your account. You're never going to get better at the game. You need to see the long haul with all this. And you need to understand that your value is not attached to your elo whatsoever. If you are actually putting in the work, you are not fake training, you are actually putting in the work, you are making progress, you're going to get better at the game. Understand, 800s of today are much stronger than 800s of 5 to 10 years ago because there's an unlimited amount of resources nowadays. People are stronger. Beginners are stronger. There's also a lot more cheaters, but beginners are a lot stronger. Intermediate players are a lot stronger. Everything is moving upward. So the truth is that you need to have that little reset button, like take a break when you need. And if you're getting red hot, you're obviously going to keep playing because you're like, oh, I'm doing so well. But don't attach, try not to attach your self-worth, your intellectual capability, your level, what you think about yourself to your rating. It's going to come. It's going to come with time. And I might say this right now and it might be completely empty. You might just go back and continue to tilt. But try to get off of that. Try to play in focus mode on these different websites where you don't see the person's rating. And when you are experiencing like a bad situation, step away for a little bit. Or cap it. Play only 5 games a day. I don't care if you win all 5 or lose all 5. Stop. Only do 10 puzzles. Try to get 10 puzzles correct every day. Stop. That will actually be how you get better. Now, if you just want to play chess for fun, that's completely fine. But you've made it to the end of this video, so I'm assuming you also want some advice on how to actually improve. That's about it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If there's anything I missed, if you have any ideas for future content that you want me to make. And as always, I appreciate you all very much for making it this far. Peace out. I'll see you in the next one. Get out of here.